Warner Brothers, the greatest studio in film history. Ta-da! Only on Netflix. I love Warner Brothers. I love Netflix. I don't love Warner Brothers being owned by Netflix. And these are my reasons why. Theaters. Ted Sarandos, in April, called theaters outmoded. Netflix usually only releases its movies in theaters to qualify for Oscar, or due to popular demand or director mandates. K-pop Demon Hunters and Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein recently got theatrical releases. The Stranger Things finale is getting one. That said, the Duffer Brothers are leaving Netflix for Paramount precisely due to Netflix's stubbornness over theatrical releases. Meanwhile, throughout its 102-year history, Warner Brothers has long championed theatrical releases. From The Jazz Singer to Looney Tunes to Blade Runner to Batman to Dune. Even in this late age, Warner Brothers was one of the more director-friendly studios and more willing to take risks. Blade Runner, huge flop. Shawshank Redemption, flop. The Matrix, groundbreaking, revolutionary, huge hit. Batman, a far cry from the 1966 Adam West series, starring Mr. Mom, Beetlejuice, a dark, serious take on the Caped Crusader. No Robin, huge risk, huge hit. But perhaps Warner's biggest risk was talkies. What's that, you say? Who the hell wants to hear actors talk? Albert Warner, circa 1925. I can only imagine what he'd think today. Vitaphone was revolutionary, and The Jazz Singer, starring Al Jolson, changed the whole game. And no, it hasn't perfectly aged. It's a good movie with great sound, but it's that scene. That's another discussion. But it was this director friendliness, rich history, and rich library that made me dream of working with Warner Brothers one day. Physical media. For those of you too young to remember, Netflix began as a DVD by mail service. This was back when Blockbuster was still a thing. Netflix debuted in 1997. We were still buying VHS. VHS was still king. Cable was still sexy. Movies were still shot and projected in 35mm. For me personally, 2002 was about the time we got our first DVD player, our first DVDs. We got Netflix right around this time. Not that there was anything wrong with Blockbuster and any of the other video stores, but you could rent from Netflix, watch it when you're ready, return it, no hassle, no late fees. Then in 2007, Netflix introduced what we now know as streaming, but it didn't really take off until the following decade. My family started streaming in 2011, which I was glad because they had just dropped all 700 episodes of Power Rangers onto Netflix. I only ever got as far as Lost Galaxy, though I did catch a few episodes of RPM. In 2016, Netflix premiered its biggest show ever, Stranger Things, a horror show, sci-fi, 1980s nostalgia, John Carpenter, Stephen King, and Spielberg influences, Carpenter influenced synth score, killer soundtrack. You had me at hello. but I didn't watch a single episode until 2019 because I just didn't have a good enough sound system to do it justice. I knew music and sound design were going to be a big part of the show, and I knew I just couldn't deliver in 2016. I could write a whole book about Stranger Things, but I saw the TV glow already exists, so that should give you a good idea of how enamored I've become with the show. The first two seasons of Stranger Things were lucky enough to get Blu-ray and 4K releases. They were Target exclusives, and Netflix actually pressed fewer copies of season 2. I suspect because the show and streaming in general was booming, and Netflix didn't want to kill its burgeoning business. And now streaming is their sole bread and butter. Few odd Netflix shows have gotten released on physical media, such as Wednesday, but this is due to Netflix not owning the shows outright. Wednesday, as my example, was released last year via MGM and Warner Brothers. Netflix has released some of its movies on Blu-ray via Criterion. A lot of the more serious cinephile stuff like The Irishman, Marriage Story, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio. Warner Brothers, meanwhile, has a rich history on physical media. On top of classics like Casablanca, Rebel Without a Cause, The Maltese Falcon, A Streetcar Named Desire, The Big Sleep, The Treasure of the Sierra Madre, The Exorcist, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, The Searchers, Rio Bravo, East of Eden, etc. Warner acquired the classic MGM library, minus things like United Artists and Orion, which are with Amazon MGM, the RKO library, and the overall Turner library. It's fun to note that Criterion's first two releases were the laserdiscs for the RKO classics Citizen Kane and King Kong. And fun fact, King Kong had the first ever audio commentary, and Citizen Kane in 2021 came Criterion's first 4K release. So the Turner library includes MGM classics such as The Wizard of Oz, 2001 Space Odyssey, Gone with the Wind, A Night at the Opera, The Philadelphia Story, Gaslight, Forbidden Planet, Ben-Hur, North by Northwest, Dr. Zhivago, Network, and old Tom and Jerry and Tex Avery cartoons. It includes RKO, Hanna-Barbera. It's a rich library which Ted Turner bought for his superstations, TBS and TNT, in 1986. It's a long story, and eventually they ended up with Time Warner. These films have been released and re-released time and time again. Some of Warner's crown jewels. Warner Archive. In 2009, Warner Home Video launched Warner Archive. It's sort of a boutique label within Warner Home Video, or nowadays SDS. It manufactures discs on demand. We're talking cult classics, lesser known films, and forgotten gems, and Joe's Apartment. I was hoping the Wild Bunch 4K, not even streaming anywhere. It made its Blu-ray debut in 2007 and reissued in 2011. It was encoded with VC1. Unfortunately, Warner opted for lossy Dolby Digital audio. Nevertheless, the Blu-ray got film historian and restoration expert Robert A. Harris's stamp of approval. So, who might argue? Turner Classic Movies. While Comcast Xfinity long ago removed TCM from our cable package, HBO Max has a TCM hub. TCM is very important for film history and for influencing the next generation of filmmakers. If TCM ever goes away, where will these future artists go? The late, great Robert Osborne had first-hand encyclopedic knowledge of the golden age of Hollywood, and every film he presented in his 22 years on the air. Nowadays you have Ben Mankiewicz, whose family is quite famous in Hollywood. Herman J. Mankiewicz wrote Citizen Kane. David Fincher made a movie about him and the making of Kane called Mank for Netflix. Netflix also has Orson Welles' long in development posthumous film The Other Side of the Wind and its documentary They'll Love Me When I'm Dead, both released in 2018. Netflix's acquisition of Warner Brothers must be stopped at all costs. And now Paramount has launched a hostile takeover to bid on Warner. Paramount was one of the original bidders along with Comcast. David Ellison is a little too friendly with Trump for my liking, but at least Paramount to this day still believes in theaters and physical media. Some of their more recent successes were Top Gun Maverick, Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. And soon they'll have SpongeBob SquarePants, The Search for SquarePants. And as for physical media, even Paramount Plus originals such as Good Burger 2 have gotten Blu-ray releases. I can watch it on Paramount Plus anytime I want, but I'm a physical media guy. And if given the choice, and if the price is right, remember my family is low income. I want Arrow's Ninja Turtles box set, but it's $40. And Warner Archive's Tom and Jerry collection is about $70. Criterion can be pricey too, while Kino is surprisingly affordable. But I've always been a huge fan of all that, and Good Burger 2 looks great next to the first movie. I actually have 2 copies of Good Burger 1, completely by accident, but it's all good. Dare I say it's all that. Again, I hope someone pumps the brakes on this whole Netflix mess, even if it's Paramount. Warner Brothers can't be owned by a streaming service. It just flies in the face of Warner's long-standing philosophy. Besides, you can guarantee Christopher Nolan will never return to Warner Brothers if this is all rubber-stamped. The unions have all condemned it. SAG-AFTRA, WGA, DGA, Teamsters 399, Senator Elizabeth Warren. Even Trump has his concerns, or so he claims. But let's not get into that now. And with that, I leave you with, that's all, folks.